Talk about tonight, Donald Trump is losing his mind and his hands. He's inventing new ways to do makeup wrong, and he has a dream that one day he will not be judged by the content of the Epstein files. Let's kick things off with distractions. What it looks like when they're fed to the media and what it looks like when they don't work. Because right now, Donald Trump is desperate to move on from the Epstein files, but the story is only building.
Just picture getting completely taken down by someone who sounds like they're calmly requesting to speak with a manager. But instead of filing a complaint, they're calmly unraveling your entire persona in front of a national audience. That's exactly the moment Donald Trump found himself in. Josh Johnson didn't storm in with loud jabs or dramatic punches. He entered with a quiet, controlled tone. And somehow, that made the impact feel 10 times heavier. No fiery outbursts, no chaos, just precise, emotionless truths that hit harder than any scream ever could. Trump's larger-than-life confidence was left quietly bleeding in the background. This wasn't some fiery roast, it felt more like a calm, calculated takedown asterisk.
And held him down, shook him a little bit. We didn't do this one. But while we wait to see if Ghislaine survives this interview, Trump has been doing everything that he can to keep those files under wraps. He's even got his friends in Congress trying to help. Mike Johnson shut down the House just to avoid a vote on the release of the files.
Asterisk, what happens when a guy who talks like a software update gently criticizing your Wi-Fi router decides to call out the president on live TV? You get Josh Johnson, America's most soft-spoken assassin, stepping up to the microphone with the calm energy of a librarian, yet somehow delivering a blow strong enough to rattle Donald Trump's pride. Without ever raising his voice, he managed to dismantle the moment with eerie precision, proving that you don't need to shout to make a room go silent.
Now, President Trump made big promises about lowering drug prices once he got into office, but all the haters said he was never actually going to get it done. Well, guess what, haters? His promises just got even bigger.
We're going to get the drug prices down, not 30 or 40%, which would be great, not 50 or 60, no. We're going to get them down 1,000%, 600%, 500%, 1,500%, numbers that are not even thought to be achievable.
Yeah, I also thought it would not be achievable to lower drug prices.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Josh doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't go on angry rants, and he certainly doesn't break a sweat. He simply puts words together so precisely that it makes Trump seem like he flunked the CAPTCHA test for running the country. While others tried to take Trump down with loud, aggressive attacks, Josh shows up with a pair of surgical scissors and an expression that says he's just slightly let down, and somehow that quiet, controlled approach ends up being 10 times more brutal.
Just so you understand, lowering drug prices 100% means it's free. Lowering it past that means they're going to give you money. Next year's Forbes billionaires list is just going to be a bunch of dudes with leukemia. Okay? On the bright side, we're actually going to be bankrupting insurance companies instead of the other way around. You know, if Trump had enacted this sooner, that CEO would have shot Louis.
This isn't some furious Twitter rant or a late-night monologue soaked in outrage. This is a slow, calculated, unraveling intellectual death by 1,000 paper cuts, all delivered with an unshaken expression. Josh Johnson doesn't roast Trump. By lighting him up, he quietly unscrews the bolts, holding Trump's public persona together, one subtle, smirking line at a time. If satire were a martial art, Josh wouldn't just be a master, he'd be a black belt in the quiet art of passive-aggressive takedowns.
Trump actually does have a plan here. It's not to put a cap on the drug prices. That'd be too easy and simple.
We're working very hard right now to get the other countries to lift up their prices a little bit and to get the drug companies to put it to them And if they don't, the drug companies will have a lot of problems, and they are mostly agreed to it. And if the countries don't, then as an example, if it's Europe, I'll say that's okay. You're no longer allowed to sell cars.
And Trump, bless his reality, TV instincts walked right into it like he was stepping onto a Miss Universe stage and forgot to apply his spray tan. Because there's truly nothing more deflating for a man who feeds off roaring applause and manufactured bravado than someone calmly pointing out that he's basically your Facebook-obsessed uncle, only with worse grammar and access to nuclear codes. You could almost hear the room deflate as Josh casually dissected Trump's most infamous moments, like the time he stared straight at his solar eclipse, or pitched bleach as a possible cure, or tweeted like a teenager with unlimited data and a personal vendetta. Johnson just sat there face still, tone steady, breaking down the absurdity as if he were giving a guest lecture on American sociology. And the wild part, he didn't even need to stretch the truth. That's what hits hardest, because when your funniest weapon is simply the facts, and one of those facts is that Trump genuinely suggested raking forests to prevent wildfires, you're not cracking jokes, you're landing body blows. Johnson's brilliance is in how effortlessly he does it. He delivers one-liners like he's reading bullet points off an Excel sheet, but somehow each one lands with the force of a steel chair to the ego. Trump, the man who demands everything, be the biggest, boldest, most unbelievable, suddenly found himself reduced to a punchline, so dry it practically beg for moisturizer.
That they clear Congress out for the summer like they found a dookie in the pool. But trying to shut down the release of the files only makes them more interesting. So over the last week, Trump has been throwing every distraction he can at us. And I want to go through some of them to show you how desperate he's getting. Let's start with his go-to distraction. Obama!
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama.
And when Josh set his sights on Trump's vocabulary, it was game over. There's simply no political spin that can rescue a man who once seemed to believe that oranges was the plural of origins. Johnson dropped that line with such calm precision, it felt less like a joke and more like a tech support report. Trump's language slip-ups aren't just funny little mistakes, they're full-blown grammatical hostage situations. And Josh, he's the unbothered negotiator refusing to engage with the nonsense. Then came the business legacy, because no, Trump critique is complete without revisiting the grand empire of golden toilets and infamous product flops. With his signature cool tone, Josh recounted the collapse of Trump University like a bedtime story that took a dark, hilarious turn. The audience didn't just laugh, they erupted. It was that raw kind of laughter that breaks out when someone finally says the obvious truth out loud for everyone to hear. This wasn't just comedy, it was pure release. The kind of moment where people aren't just entertained, they feel seen.
Treating Americans like a kid you can bribe with a treat. Allow me to demonstrate what Donald Trump is going for here. I don't care about pedophilia anymore.
This wasn't stand-up comedy begging for applause, it felt more like a group therapy session led by someone who clearly avoids small talk but is somehow tailor-made for poetic payback. Josh's commentary on Trump's ego might have been the sharpest cut of all, because when you tell a man obsessed with crowd sizes that his approval ratings could fit on the back of a cocktail napkin, you're not just making fun, you're rewriting his memoir in Comic Sans. And Josh didn't smirk, didn't gloat. He delivered it as casually as someone reading off a weather report, dry, clinical, and absolutely ruthless, while Trump's political brand is all noise and bluster wrapped in a layer of spray tan. Johnson is the calm storm that follows. He doesn't yell about corruption, he simply notes that Trump can't spell it. He doesn't rage about scandals, he just quietly asks if we should really expect anything different from a guy who once tried to redraw a hurricane with a Sharpie. And when it came to the presidency itself, Josh didn't need to raise his voice. To describe the chaos instead, he broke it down like a teacher reviewing a failed group project. Trump's for years didn't resemble leadership, they looked more like a reality show that somehow never got cancelled, and Josh was there calmly. Summing it up, so this contestant tried to build a wall with no funding and a weather map drawn in marker.
Epstein died back in 2019, but not since Tupac Shakur has a dead man dropped so many bangers, all right? Yesterday, video of the government questioning him back in 2010 started making the rounds, and you'll never guess whose name came up. Go ahead, guess.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
And then, as if all that weren't enough, Johnson shifted his focus to the post-presidency chapter, the rallies, the social media bans, the courtroom sagas that made real-life politics feel like a parody of Law and Order reimagined by Disney. Trump, once the most powerful man in the world, now seemed more like a guy yelling at golf balls on the weekend. And Josh, with just a slight head tilt and a perfectly timed pause, made the whole phase sound like a sequel nobody wanted. That's why this rose felt so different. While most critics come at Trump like he's some terrifying force, Josh approached him like a broken household appliance. His delivery was so quiet, it somehow echoed louder. It was a subtle, piercing reminder that when your fan base is willing to buy both a branded Bible and an NFT from you in the same week, you're not leading a political revolution, you're hosting a late-night infomercial wrapped in patriotic merchandise. And that's the strange brilliance of Josh Johnson. He doesn't need to shout to cut deep. He takes his time, paints the picture, and lets the ridiculousness speak for itself. He doesn't punch up or down or swing wildly, he simply observes you with unnerving precision. And somehow, that lands 10 times harder.
Put that down as a yes? I'll be honest, I've never heard anybody plead anything other than the fifth before. But this guy's so guilty, he's calling out every amendment he can think of. Like, no, what's the one with the women voting? 19, throw that in too. Now, this video is dropping less than a day since we found out Pam Bondi reportedly warned Trump back in May that his name was in the files multiple times. And it just so happens her next appearance was scheduled last night at a summit against human.
This wasn't your typical political roast packed with shouting and sweaty outrage. This was a precise takedown, delivered with the control of a brain surgeon and the emotional distance of someone working at the DMV. It was quiet, methodical, and absolutely devastating. In the world of comedy, loud mockery is like fireworks, bright, noisy, and gone in an instant. But subtle satire, that's a landmine. You laugh, then you stop, and that's when it hits by the time you realize it. Wasn't just a joke, the damage is already done. Josh's brand of comedy doesn't beg for attention, it takes it without asking. While others are busy yelling into microphones, Josh walks in, speaks softly, drops a 5-word observation, and effortlessly dismantles the towering illusions people spend years trying to maintain. And somehow, that quiet reflection in the mirror turns out to be funnier and far more unsettling than anything you could ever exaggerate.
You don't care about Coke or Trump's health. Don't worry, he's got some true crime for you.
This morning, the Trump administration releasing more than 230,000 pages of records related to the assassination of civil rights icon Martin Luther King Jr.
That's how bad things are for Trump. His back is against the wall so hard, he's releasing more Black history. Be the worst distraction because all he did was remind us that he can declassify thousands of secret files, and people noticed.
Bernice King, the daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., posted this picture on social media with the caption that simply reads, "Now do the Epstein files."
And let's be real, Trump thrives in chaos. He doesn't just survive it. He soaks in it like a shark gliding through murky waters. But instead of water, it's confusion and noise that fuel him. You yell at him, he yells back louder. You throw one insult, he fires off 5. But Josh doesn't yell, he doesn't swing. He simply leans in like he's about to ask for your Wi-Fi password, and instead, he drops a truth bomb so precise and unexpected, it stops you cold. Suddenly, you're left wondering how this quiet man ever got access to nuclear codes in the first place. It's that fine-tuned dance between absurdity and logic, where each amplifies the other until the truth becomes impossible to ignore. The audience reaction, controlled chaos, not the wild kind, but that eerie mix of gasps, uncomfortable, chuckles, and then a slow wave of realization. Wait, he's actually right. That's when you know it's not just comedy, it's something sharper. That's when the laughter fades into reflective silence, and you realize this isn't just funny, it's transformative. It's the kind of humor that flips your entire perspective without ever raising its voice, and somehow you're okay with it.
Trump knows Epstein so well. They were friends. Trump lived so close to Epstein in Florida that Epstein had to knock on his door and let him know he was on the sex offender registry. Like, that's how close they lived together. He knocked on the door, was like, hi, the court has ordered me to notify you that I'm in the area. I have been convicted of a few crimes, and I left my suit jacket over here last night, so that's great.
And here's the real kicker: this entire moment says everything about where we are as a country. The fact that it takes a soft-spoken comedian to deliver the clarity that the 24/7's news cycle can't. That alone should make us pause, while traditional institutions twist themselves into knots trying to stay neutral. Comedians like Josh Johnson step in and say exactly what everyone's been thinking in the most unapologetically precise way imaginable. While others shout to be heard above the chaos, he simply whispers the truth, and somehow, that whisper carries louder than an entire Trump rally sound system. Trump's obsession with dominance is the core of his image, the bravado, the slogans, the branding, all wrapped up in a gladiator performance. But the real power shift happens when someone like Josh walks in and doesn't challenge that dominance, doesn't even acknowledge it, he just observes it like it's an exhibit in a zoo. And that's where the real damage is done, because you can't outplay someone on their home field, but Josh doesn't try to. He doesn't fight, he narrates. And in the end, it's not the volume that shatters the illusion, it's the brutal precision.
Are doing tariffs?
Damn right we are. I ain't scared of shit.
Not even more expensive housing?
Tariffs are off.
But that will increase the trade deficit.
On again.
Well, what about the price of breakfast?
Off in the morning, on at night.
But Canada is retaliating.
Off with Canada, on with China. We'll go to war with China. I don't give a f.
Josh, China has nukes.
No tariffs on China.
And Josh's aim was laser precise. He didn't need to dig through piles of scandals or scandals about the scandals. He didn't have to raise his voice over insurrections or impeachments. All he did was calmly point out that the emperor's hair looks like cotton candy, and somehow, that's when everyone finally started to see it. So here we are. The so-called Teflon Don got vaporized by a punchline that sounded like it came from a slightly confused librarian. Trump had dodged the FBI, sidestepped impeachment, slipped past 1,000 controversies, but he couldn't dodge this roast, dry as sandpaper and twice as sharp. It hit him right where it hurts the most, his image. And there's no NDA, no hush money, no PR spin strong enough to undo that. And if you thought this was bad, just wait until Josh Johnson turns his focus to Elon Musk. The more Johnson spoke, the smaller Trump seemed, not in size, though that would have been a sight, but in presence, in credibility, in logic, every quiet line shaved off another layer of illusion. Every deadpan joke revealed a fresh crack in the golden facade. It was like watching someone pop a balloon just by whispering to it.
There are so many people that came out and they were like, look, what the whole reason that we joined this MAGA movement, the whole reason that we thought Trump being in office was a good thing is because it would mean more good jobs for Americans. And look, if you genuinely believed that, then I don't. Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not being a. I'm saying, like, if you
And in a time when everything feels overexposed where noise, drama, and desperation flood every screen, Josh Johnson's sharpest weapon might be that he genuinely doesn't care if you notice him, which ironically makes you pay even more attention. He's not chasing trends, he's chasing the truth. And in Trump's world, where exaggeration is currency, the quiet honesty makes Josh the most dangerous person in the room. So no, Trump wasn't ready, because how do you clap back at a guy who sounds like your accountant but cuts like a samurai? Johnson didn't just roast Trump, he calmly escorted him out of the realm of credibility. No drama, no sweat, just a smooth, surgical exit from the conversation. It was controlled, powerful, and in a strange way, kind of beautiful. Because at its core, this wasn't about left or right, it was about clarity, about watching someone simply point out that the emperor's clothes weren't just missing. They never existed in the first place. Josh didn't need to shout. All he needed was a mic, a little time, and a mountain of patience. And honestly, what's more devastating than that? Nothing, absolutely nothing, asterisk.